Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and we're going to be reading a story called The Allergen today. And let's see. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. And we do have, let's see. So this story is going to connect in with some of the others, of course. I'm finding that I'm sort of been writing stories that while the characters haven't connected or crossed over at this point yet, they definitely seem to take place in the same world. So we're going to start today with The Allergen. The last story I sent regarding Lloyd Jameson and Anne Rosemont was sent because I believe it not to be fiction, but to be thinly fictionalized fact. Similarly, this story, The Allergen. Dr. Gonzalez, please come in. The FBI agent, whom Dr. Jorge Gonzalez had never met before, was beckoning him into an office not far from the front desk. Except as he stepped in, he realized it wasn't an office. It was an interview room, or, he mused, an interrogation room. The agent, short brown hair, black suit with a dark blue tie, tanned in a way that indicated he liked to spend time outdoors, and with that direct gaze he associated with white men wielding power, held his hand out in a gesture meant to welcome him into the room. Thank you, Special Agent Jack Friedman. This matched the ID, which was clipped to his suit lapel, which Dr. Gonzalez confirmed with a glance he kept as quick as possible. There was a table surrounded by 6 comfortable-looking office chairs. He chose one not far from the door. The agent chose one, not directly across from him, but kitty corner, even closer to the door. Probably something they'd been taught to do in interrogation school, he mused. This room, he realized, was certainly designed for friendly talks rather than hardline interrogations. There's even a water cooler by the door. Water? Or I can ask for some coffee, Special Agent Friedman offered. I'm fine, thanks, Dr. Gonzalez demurred. I'm sure both our times are quite valuable. How may I help? I understand you're an immunologist, and you work regularly with Good Samaritan Hospital's emergency room. This would be easily gotten information, and he wasn't about to be easily intimidated. That is correct. I also have a private practice. And you do both allergy and immunology work? Correct. It's a common shared specialty. Do you have regular shifts in the emergency room, or are you called in when needed? Typically, I'm called in when needed. It's why my practice is in the same office complex as the hospital. Special Agent Freeman nodded. He had pulled out a pad of paper and a pen. He didn't look old enough for it to be ingrained habit. Dr. Gonzalez suspected it was something the agent did to let his interviewee know that everything would be taken down to be referenced later. Is my practice under suspicion of something, Agent Friedman? No, nothing like that, he replied. Then in what way do you need my help? Dr. Gonzalez realized his body had become stiff, his hands clenching each other on the tabletop. He willed himself to relax. He'd done nothing wrong. It's regarding a recent patient of yours, Clara Jimenez, also her 2 children, Santino and Hugo Jimenez. You must realize patient confidentiality and HIPAA rules require, he started, but Special Agent Freeman held up a hand. I'm well aware of the rules, he replied. The law indicates that personal health information shall be given to law enforcement officials under several circumstances, including to prevent or mitigate a possible health crisis, to provide evidence of a crime, or to alert of a death caused by criminal misconduct. But this was a case of allergic reaction, Dr. Gonzalez replied. Which of those circumstances applies? That is what I'm trying to determine, Special Agent Friedman said, but I think the most relevant one, given the number of victims, is to mitigate a health crisis. If victim is the right word here, Dr. Gonzalez pointed out. Exactly. So please let me know what you know, and we'll see whether we have victims of criminal activity or perhaps just victims of circumstance. I need to know so we can keep this from getting worse. Dr. Gonzalez took a moment. Okay, so Good Sam called me in, had some sort of serious problem. A woman had crashed into the front of the emergency room. That would turn out to be Clara Jimenez. She hadn't caused serious damage to her sons, or even the car. She was just panicked. They brought the 2 sons in, who were both having severe allergic reactions, and anaphylactic shock had set in. They got the kids intubated and gave them the usual treatment for that situation. And then it got bad. In what way? Nurses, doctors, patients, visitors. Really, it started in the waiting room right near the emergency entrance. Out of nowhere, people were dropping left and right, all anaphylactic shock. Not knowing the cause, they treated it like an epidemic and quarantined the area. I understand it took every bit of the medicine stores they had, plus more they got from nearby facilities. When I got there, they had things more or less under control, but they wanted answers, and I was there to figure it out. Well, it wasn't hard, really. I asked who the first cases were, learned about the two boys, learned about their mother bringing them there, figured out that the waiting room where she was had the next earliest cases, so yeah, it was her. Something on her about her was a serious allergen. In fact, that almost understates it. It acts more like a toxin. Most allergens, you see, not everyone is allergic to them, and people have different reactions of different strengths. A few things like mosquito bites are pretty universal, but they're rare, and mosquito bites are introduced right into the skin. This seemed to be airborne. Did you figure out what it was? Special Agent Freeman asked. We're still working on that question, the doctor replied. So it wasn't something on her person, but something she was giving off herself? Correct. We got her washed, changed her clothes completely, checked everything else we could. The allergen was still there. We're still identifying it. We had to test whether she was still allergic the old-fashioned way, putting ourselves in harm's way. So far, it looks like whatever she's giving off, whether off her skin, through her breath, or however, it's still there, still being produced. But she has no reaction to it. Correct, but that's normal. There are people, rare, unfortunate people, who are allergic to other people. They have to live like hermits, but they're never allergic to themselves. I suppose if someone were ever allergic to themselves, it would show up as a severe autoimmune disease of some kind, and if it went out of control, it would surely be fatal. But no, she isn't affected at all. Can I see her? The doctor looked at him. What are you hoping to learn? Just what's causing this, if it is only her, what she might know about it, if anything, and if it's likely to spread. We've pretty much covered that ground with her. She doesn't know anything, but I suppose it wouldn't hurt to ask. You'll need her permission. She's hardly a criminal. Thank you, Doctor, the agent replied, not bothering to acknowledge the warnings. I'd like to go to her right away. Agent Freeman was at the hospital quarantine room within the hour. Dr. Gonzalez had helped usher him through the red tape. The room had a big window with electronic intercom set up so that the person in the room could communicate with someone outside. Clara Jimenez was awake and already looking at Special Agent Freeman the moment he came into her view. Her eyes were wide with confusion and, Friedman suspected, fear. She bore the unmistakable signs of having been crying. Ms. Jimenez? He asked, pushing the intercom button. Yes, she replied. He wasn't sure if he was expecting an accent, but she had none. I'm Special Agent Jack Friedman with the FBI, he said, and showed her the ID by pushing it up against the window. She looked at it, then back at him. May I ask you some questions? I guess so, she said. When did this start? About an hour before I got here. My sons were getting ready for school. They started complaining about having difficulty breathing and feeling choked up. Before I knew it, they were slumping over. They'd never had attacks like that before. And I felt fine. I dragged them into the car in a panic and rushed over to the hospital. And this has never happened before? Not with your sons? Not with anyone else around you? No, never. Are you saying it's me? Something about me? We're still looking into that, Ms. Jimenez. Are you feeling well yourself? Yes, I'm fine. Just scared for my sons and feeling trapped in this room. Yes. Did you feel at all unusual today? Anything? Even if seemingly positive? No, I seem normal. Everything was normal. I still feel normal, physically. And there have been no unusual occurrences around your home or neighborhood? She looked at him. Like what? Any strange people hanging around? Break-ins? Peeping Toms? Anything like that? She looked nonplussed. No, nothing like that I know of. You might ask my neighbors, especially the Lus next door. They're often gardening and doing outdoor things. Thanks, I will. He made a note. If you think of anything else, will you please tell me? I will leave my information with the doctors. Or please swing by any time. Apparently I'll be here, she said, grimacing. The door behind Agent Freeman opened, and two boys came into the room. Miss Jimenez immediately only had eyes for them. Freeman backed away and let them have their moment. Special Agent Freeman met with Dr. Gonzalez shortly thereafter. What's the plan for her then, Doctor? Well, we pin down what chemical is causing the allergic reaction. Then we try to see if we can counteract it in some way. And until then, I don't think we can let her go. She'd be a menace anywhere she went. All we can do is make her as comfortable as possible in the meantime. And what is the time frame for finding and counteracting the allergen? Dr. Gonzalez blew air out his mouth. Extremely hard to say. You have to understand, this case is unique. Still, finding the chemical should be doable. I'm hopeful we can do it in just a few more days. Hell, it could happen today. As to what we do with that information, well, we will see. Can we tell immediately where the allergen is coming from based on what it is? Maybe, but I'm not hopeful. So we have to find out where it's coming from. Is she breathing it out? Is it coming out her skin? Is it her skin cells themselves? Is it some other oil from her skin or hair? Anyway, that info may well tell us something that it could be difficult or even impossible to make her body stop producing it. In that case, maybe we can chemically counteract it. Perhaps she'd be able to, say, wash down with a special soap or rub down with a chemical and keep the allergen from harming other people. And if not, she may be there forever? Dr. Jimenez shrugged. Maybe. My heart goes out to her, but there's no way we can let her go around in public as it stands. She could kill 1,000 people just by walking through a downtown. Thanks, Doctor. After the meeting, Friedman took lunch in the hospital cafeteria. Then he went back to the quarantine room. The boys had gone, and Clara Jimenez was facing away from the big window. She was upset, holding her face in her hands. Friedman watched her for a while, then stepped out and went back to the office to write his reports. Note, though fictionalized, M, I believe this was written up by an actual agent. I'm trying to run down the original report. Friedman is clearly an alias. I'm not sure if the patients' or doctors' names are changed, but suspect they are. And that's the story for this week. So, if you enjoyed it, please, share us on social media or let us know, CryptoBiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. And until next week, thanks for listening. Words and music, copyright 2018, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved.